Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Nerd Initiative followers. This is Shawn, aka Multiverse from Nerd Initiative. And I have the pleasure today of interviewing DaVaun Sanders, the author of the upcoming final book in Marvel's highly successful What If novel series. Yes, DaVaun has copies of it already. I am waiting to get mine for my pre-order, so I am excited about this. But DaVaun, welcome. Thanks for taking time to talk to me today. Really excited to kind of dig into this book and this story with you a little bit.
I appreciate it, Shawn. It's a pleasure to get on and to kind of geek out about this. It's always surreal when you're getting closer to a release because you've been working on the thing and put it to bed, months ago, and now you get to kind of like start the engine back up again and get back in the mix. So I'm excited to talk about it.
And you shared a little bit on social media when your physical copies started coming in. What was that day like when you finally got that box of physical copies in and it's gone from being a final manuscript to an actual physical book you can hold in your hand?
It's funny. I'm going to be a little too honest, probably, but I always appreciate authors who can do unboxing videos and capture that joy because I'm like, I see the publisher's name on the box, like I know where it's from. It's like it's
Right.
cool, it's here. I think with this one, it was a little bit different because it is such a big book. Like we're pushing like 500 pages and to have a book, of that size, like that was remarkable. The wild thing with it too is seeing, naturally the trailer came out this same week, so it was just like kind of for Doomsday, and having all of that happen, just all within this very short span was tremendous. That was definitely a little bit of a overwhelm in a good way. And then I also kind of take some pleasure in in dragging my kids into this stuff because they're the ones, if I'm on a deadline or something and hold up in the office, that have to patiently wait for me to emerge. So I always try to include them in the wins as well, and this one was definitely a big win.
Awesome. So for people who may be watching who are not familiar with your work outside of this, or this is maybe the first time they're hearing of you, walk us a little bit through the process. How does someone who focuses primarily in like Black speculative fiction, the editor of Fire magazine, how does this come to the process? How do you go from that to writing the finale of a long building Marvel multiverse story?
Oh man, yeah. How do you get there? There's a million ways to the goal, right? Uh, I certainly wouldn't prescribe my particular path to anyone as a blueprint, but just as I think the main pull from my particular journey would be about just perseverance and then being positive that good things happen when you keep your mindset right and when you're willing to work hard. For me, uh, there's been so much with the magazine. It is a privilege to edit for Fire. I've done so for a number of years now, and proud of the work we've been able to accomplish in that space. I think as a Black author that is getting a pretty amazing opportunity to write for something, one of the biggest IPs on the planet. Uh, it's one of those things where I am really I recognize the opportunity and then the scope of expectation I think that comes with writing not only Dr. Doom but with all of these characters and making sure that I'm doing them justice and just operating in a good space to where it's going to be an incredible story that also resonates with my experience. When we talk about journey, um, a lot of what readers will find in my past work, numerous short stories in the adult space. Most of my novels to this point are in middle grade. And I think that was one component, just like, if I had to put an editor hat on and look at myself and it's like, is this guy up to the challenge? Uh, being being in a place of speculative fiction, having the imagination out there is definitely a prerequisite. And not necessarily that you just have this encyclopedic knowledge of Marvel or comic books in general, but really what makes story tick, what makes character tick. You can get through, any kind of work and check a number of boxes. Like, did you get the, I don't know, the description of a particular costume right or something like that, right?
Mhm.
But is that necessarily going to be the detail that pushes your work over the top? Probably not. So with all that said, I would look at like who I am as a just as a human being, as an author, the fatherhood aspects, that how I'm trying to live my life definitely ties into the story and part of Doom's arc, which I'm going to do my best not to spoil. So please, if you got to chop this, if you got to
Hey, we
chop
gotta
this
chop
up,
it up
please
and
do
cut
it.
spoilers out. We will. It's hard for me to. I was lucky enough that the publisher granted me access to read an early review copy of this digitally. I've been reading it. It's great. It's the perfect finale to this story. And what I did want to talk about is it is a finale of the story. So one of the unique things about what DaVaun has to do with this story is you're playing in a sandbox that's already there. You're playing with characters that other writers have put forth and things like that. And some unique stories from a Phoenix powered Kitty Pryde to a Venomized Mark Spector. Was it kind of a challenge for you to manage all of those big personalities doing your own thing while all still kind of honoring the work that the authors of the first books put in for you?
Oh, 100%. I yeah, I've got stories about all the silliness that happens when you're trying to, you know, head hop from one character arc to another. I think what made it the best kind of challenge was uh the incredible ground I had to work with in the past work, to draw from the authors who preceded and who built up to this place. Um it's one of those things where my in just like kind of like breaking it down objectively, like how am I going to map this out? How am I going to hit the points that we're looking to accomplish with the series that have kind of already been set up and laid down by the other authors? Um, is what am I doing to bring forward their work and not just say, okay, I'm the captain of the ship now or whatever. I get to, go off and captured all of my wildest dreams or all the things that I would do differently. It's like it's not like that at all, where um the work that's been done in these four novels is so rich. It it really made my job easier in a lot of aspects because I get to say, okay, here's what's going on with Wanda and her brothers in this. How do I build off that in a way that's organic and is still true to all the growth that she experienced throughout her book, and then doing that over the course of all these different characters. So suffice to say, with everybody that we're looking at, Moon Knight and Venom, Wanda and Peter Parker, America Chavez, and then Loki, like all wrapped up, uh, being in a space of being in the right headspace to capture these folks, right? Because a point of view chapter from America is going to sound very different than a point of view chapter, with Mark Spector, and not to mention, his alters, and then Venom thrown into the mix. So, and then side note for that, shout
You
out
took a guy
to
with three
Mike
alters
Chen.
and gave him four, basically,
Yeah,
when you had Venom in.
and that's leaving out a particular moon god as well, so it's one of those things where um I kind of got the chance to walk this tightrope of being true to the work that's been done in these prior novels,
Mhm.
acknowledging that these characters are some of the most beloved in Marvel and in comics, and finding ways to uh, pull the notes from both and still maintain a compelling story. I think What If is kind of the perfect franchise for this kind of experimentation, because you're allowed to do those things that are deeply true to the characters as we know them, but you're also allowed to riff a little bit. You're required to riff a little bit, right? And I think our ability to reinvent and reimagine these characters over and over is what makes them so iconic and unforgettable.
Right. And it's, it's a little bit like blues, right? You're still sitting in that pocket with these characters, but you're going to do your own thing. You're going to riff on it. And I will tell you folks, as someone who has read the book, if you're one of those people who is online, and not any real shame to you if you are, but if you're one of those people online who constantly ask, what happened to so and so? Why have we not seen this person again in the MCU? Understand and suffice to say, DaVaun takes care of that in the What If books. So if you've read the previous 4 books, and you are wondering like, oh man, is this person just going to disappear? No, like it's taken care of. He did the homework. You don't just see this person once that's a pretty big character and then they just disappear out of it. So if that is your gripe with the MCU, come on over to the What If fiction side. We've got fulfilling storylines where you're going to get able to enjoy it and stuff like that.
100%.
But you've talked a little bit, obviously, it's no spoiler, the front cover of the book, Doctor Doom kind of hangs over everybody. Right now, Doctor Doom is all the rage. We've got San Diego Comic-Con. Everybody in Hall H got Doom mask and cowls. I've got my own Doom mask, Latverian flag. Obviously, I'm a true Latverian patriot. And finally, Marvel's biggest bad is headed to the MCU. So without kind of spoiling anything, what's maybe a little bit different about the Victor Von Doom that readers are going to encounter in your book versus kind of maybe what we've seen in comics or what we're kind of expecting to see in the movies?
Oh man. I to geek out for a minute, I hope like the trailer like surpassed expectations, like when we're talking about the movies, right? Like that was I feel like the buildup is it just from looking at those notes, it feels like that they're going to knock it out of the park. That's what we all want at the end of the day.
Right.
I think when we look at Doom, as it was really a fascinating character to write for, because his ego is so massive. It's easy to poke fun at it as many of us do, right? And just like how convinced he is that everything he's doing is right and for the best, and if only everybody else could see.
If there's 2 Marvel characters that every single writer is going to put their ego in, it's Doctor Doom and Doctor Strange.
100%. Like I think it was empowering in a way, because it's like with Doom, with the character like that, like me as a person who just in my day-to-day life is maybe tend to overanalysis, but maybe tends to question myself in like, am I making the right call? No, I don't get to do that for this guy. Like everything he does is right all the time. And I would dare say that getting the chance to write Doctor Doom was just like kind of therapeutic in a way.
Right.
I get to be in a space of like, that's not how this is going. This is the best way to do it, and this is how it's going to be.
He's the overthinker's antithesis, right? Like if you're an overthinker, Doom's the opposite end of that. He goes forward convinced that what he's doing is right and for the right reasons. So
absolutely, it is. And how dare you question me, right, along the way. I would, if there's definitely I think changing that aspect of Doom would break the most enjoyable parts of the character that we know. I would say that this, for reasons I'm okay, not spoiling, but for reasons that become clear as we get to explore this version's Doom's his origins, if you will, we get to see where he might lean a little bit more towards cooperation than what we know of Doom's in the past. Right. And all the versions that are out there, and that choice on my part makes for some interesting just character angst and impacts the story in a positive way, if I can be as generic as possible.
and again, this is kind of ties into that, and this is not a spoiler. You can get mad if you want. It's in the synopsis for the book.
Right.
But you talked about Doom's ego, and we all know Doom for his ego. But one of the other kind of key characteristics that really kind of developed under Jonathan Hickman and has definitely taken a life of its own under Ryan North writing Doom and Fantastic Four, is that as much as Doom's known for his ego, probably the only other thing comic book fans know him for is how much he loves his goddaughter, how much he loves Valeria. And so for you, what is it like switching it up and making kind of Franklin the object of his affection and his love versus Valeria?
I think it's one of those things where you get to see how terrifying a persona like Doom is when he's focused on an objective. You get to see that when it's what we perceive as a positive objective, right? As something that's um, he really gets to do all of the things that we would expect a dedicated parent figure would want to do, but naturally he puts his own Doom twist on it,
Right.
and things may be a little bit alarming to other people who are kind of observing the situation unfold. I think that kind of uh, devotion kind of goes hand in hand with the self belief and the ego that we talked about earlier. Um, for all of the people I respect as fathers and as parents, it's one of those things that it's you kind of fall into it without breathing. And for uh, a character of this ability, and when we talk about his prowess with plotting or magic or technology and everything else in between, seeing him get a chance to fixate on something we would consider so wholesome. That was probably like some of the most appealing chapters in just seeing how he gets to dive in on this journey that he's been on for this entire series.
Yeah. And it really is. I tell you from reading the book, and obviously as a big Doom fan, it really is. DaVaun really does give us a beautiful look at a different side of Doom. There's still, we know throughout the history of comics, Doom is always convinced of his rightness, his ego, and things like that. But one thing that DaVaun kept on top of just the ego part is even if Doom's or goal has changed, his motivations and intentions are still relatively pure. He believes in what he's doing, even if it's not necessarily the thing with Doctor Doom has always been. You don't have to necessarily like his methods, but you can't doubt his passion and his commitment to his belief in what he thinks is
Absolutely.
right. And we see a lot of that in this story where, like you said, you've got people looking kind of side-eyed, like, what is this guy doing? But he truly goes forward believing he's doing what is best. One thing I talked to the Nerd Initiative team and I said, hey, if you guys have read these stories, what are some questions you have? And one that came up from a member of our team was that in What If the Multiverse Was Doomed, um, Doom's kind of threat to the universe seems not just necessarily rooted in power. There is kind of that love, that grief, and even that desire to control reality. He is having a very big feeling, right, about feeling perceived pain caused by the universe that he wants to take care of that. So when you're dealing with Avengers of the Multiverse, you're dealing with this multiverse ending story. How do you balance those big cosmic stakes with emotional stakes when you've got very emotional characters like Wanda, like Kitty Phoenix, like America Chavez, who are all carrying some like inkling of destiny plus some sort of reality shaping trauma? How do you balance the threat versus the emotion?
Mm, I, that's a great question. I think we live in this timeline where and especially for those of us in the West and uh, that are in this late stage capitalism as we call it, right?
Right.
There's we get to the point of like what's bigger and what's the best way to do it and how can I go harder and no gas no brake, like
Mhm.
with all of our pursuits almost, right? And it gets to a
Right.
point where it can start to feel a little ridiculous, or where you just become numb to it all because it's like, okay, we conquered this thing, what's next? And it's always that endless cycle of escalation. For me, I think the trying to focus more on those human elements is what balances that out. Because it's one thing to know on a level that that there's danger impacting other people, and that default as people who hopefully care about other people and their well-being, right? Regardless of if they live on my block or in my house or in my city, uh, that we should have some concern. And I think it's really easy to get to a point, like I was saying, where you start to become numb to that. So with these personal stakes tied into all of the threat that's happening with the multiverse, the personal stakes, and then the different situations that happen, as America is uncovering everything that's going on in Doom's plan, and uh, having these moments, not just with her, but with the other characters who are pulled into this story and who see uh, Doom as have that shared viewpoint of Doom as a threat. Uh, having, yes, there's maybe there, for example, there's a reality that's in danger, but how do we make that real for the characters versus just like, oh no, there's another reality that was destroyed. That's bad. We need to keep fighting. Whatever that is. I think those kinds of challenges for writers are some of the most appealing because we have to find ways to take these concepts that are almost too big to grasp and make them personal. And uh, I hope I accomplished that enough throughout the story, not just for America and just for Doom, but for all the other characters who are on the cover and who make their cameos, because uh, everybody, has their feelings, right? And everybody's in a space of what's important to them is going to clash with what's important to somebody who's coming at it from a different direction. And sometimes those folks are on the same team.
Well, and that's, you kind of really beautifully segued into kind of a conversation me and some other comic folks have been having about comics in general now, is whether it's DC, whether it's Marvel. Mainly it's the big two. Some of the more indie comics, we'll get into it as well, but mainly with those big two, there's been past 5-10 years this big reliance on almost like events, like big events happening that
Mhm.
never have any sort of real stakes that go beyond, right? I loved One World Under Doom, but as a longtime Doom reader, I know Doom doesn't get to be the good guy. Like eventually something bad's going to pop up, the universe is going to reset to the status quo, things like that. But maybe there can be a great story and something in the way, and it was. But
Mhm.
um, I think you guys in the, not on the comic book side, on the actual written novel side, have it even a little bit more difficult because you have to go through the words. You don't have necessarily the pictures to create this buy-in. Like you said, not just for the characters, but for the reader. Why do I care that yet another universe has been destroyed or another multiverse has been destroyed? Oh no, it's another one. Like, yeah, and that's, I can see where that would definitely be a challenge, trying to write in a way that you tie those together. And I loved where you talked about personal stakes versus like the global stakes and balancing that emotion and where the feelings are of the characters. Um, and if you haven't read the series, America Chavez plays a huge role in all of this. That's a little bit spoilery, but again, she's on the cover. Um, she doesn't have her own book, but she is kind of the thread that weaves through a lot of this, and you find out why, and it all makes perfect sense. But it is, especially in this book, very, there's some emotional moments in this book. There are some really moments that I remember going back and reading through, and I'm like, and like, did I read that? Let me reread that, because and I've seen a couple people who've had a chance to read it already.
Mhm.
Um, and obviously the one that's sneaking out right now, the lot of people about is Give Her Back, She's Mine. Um, becoming a really big moment. And you read the book, you'll find out what all that is about. But yeah, and this novel in particular ties the emotional stakes. And DaVaun, I think that's a credit to your writing ability, because you took these characters from four other authors, plus their comic inspirations and things like that, um, and made them compelling in a way that was not only true to what the authors originally established in those books, but in a way that fits this story. I think the biggest praise that I can give to this book is it feels independent. It feels standalone from the other stories, while also honoring the four stories that came before it. And I think
Oh,
that,
that's beautiful to hear.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's
exactly the goal.
it's such a rare thing when you see something like this, because anytime, whether it's an anthology or in comics or even this kind of serialized novel style, it's always nice when you are going to do something where they kind of all come together, where it feels like a new fresh story, but also in a way that honors that. And I wonder, I talked about your work as the editor at FIA, and your work in speculative fiction. How did those backgrounds with the speculative fiction, with the editing, things like that, how did that kind of or I guess you'd say, affect how you approach this multiversal adventure?
Man, I think as an editor, uh, one of as an editor writer, let me
Mhm.
say it that way.
Yeah.
One of the perks of the job is you get exposed just to so much imagination. Uh, it helps you it helps you push yourself when you see what's amazing, talented writers, whether their stories are accepted in the magazine or whether they're passed on, just to see what people are working with. The it's a two-edged sword, because then you see an idea and you're like, well, that's amazing, and I can't use it because it's somebody else's, right? Somebody else did that.
One of those, why didn't I think of this moments?
Yeah, exactly. All the time, like, good job. Let's publish it, but also dang it.
Right. It's like
Those are the best things to
the meme with the little boy, right? Great, happy for you, so excited. Right.
have. Yeah. So there's that element as an editor. I think um I get the chance to uh read widely and considered. I think the other thing as an editor is that there's aspects of it that just on the mechanical, like day in, day out grinding of getting these words on paper, and doing so expeditiously. IP deadlines tend to have pretty brutal turnarounds compared to somebody who might be a debut or somebody who's working on something that's a standalone. So that was definitely a factor with this book. Um, so that that all plays a part, like, I think, in the background of just of needing to be on my A game, imagination wise, with the things that are possible, while also staying true to the ground that was laid by the authors, and then the larger universe of the comics themselves, and all the writers that have built these characters into the icons that they are. Um, yeah, just, I think being able to do all that is something that those pursuits kind of like build your bandwidth, so to speak. Like, if you were going to use a athletic metaphor, it's just like building a bigger gas tank so that I could take on a work of this scale. It was challenging, but it's like I knew I could do it. My editors over with Random House Worlds, uh, shout out to them. My book doulas, because they simultaneously uh pushed, where there were moments, like you talked about the emotion, there were moments where they were like, hey, you're there, but, like, let's take this 9 and dial it up to a 12, right? And really pulled out some of those moments, in addition to also giving me space when I had stuff that wasn't landing in earlier drafts, giving me space to, like, hey, let me drill down on this, because I feel like we've got an opportunity here to do something unique in the story. And and went to bat for me on some stuff too. So it was that combination where it's it's
It ties into
a
the whole
well-used
overarching
cliche
story,
that
right? The whole
it's
overarching story of the parenting and being that nurturing. But it's the same thing, right? With your editors of giving you the push you need when you need it, but also giving you the runway to see that, hey, there's a seed of something here. Let's water it and see kind of what it develops into.
for sure. There's a village around any book. There's the people who are immediately working with you, uh, to bring the drafts out and bring it over the finish line. And then there's your support system of folks, who all get who get the hugs, who know the horror stories in the background, who are with you through all of that. So I think I'm fortunate to have a very large village in that regard, of people who wish me well, and then a very dedicated uh, group of the folks who were just like that I can, go cry on their shoulder virtually if I'm struggling with a particular chapter or a particular character arc.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Just it, it- regardless of what type of media we're talking about, whether we're talking about a novel, whether we're talking about a comic book, I don't think, I mean, I would say obviously not because there's all the statistics about how few Americans read a book in the last year for fun.
Oh my
But
God. Yeah.
just in general, I think even people who actively read books and actively read comics and things like that don't understand the hands that touch that book or the hands that touch that comic before it ever gets to yours, on top of all the support system around, the spouses that get ideas bounced off of them, the kids who have to go find something to do while mom or dad is locked in the office pounding this out because there's a deadline looming, things like that. And so it's great to hear you talk about just the village that it takes, because I think for people who consume media, whether it's written, visual, musical, they don't necessarily always stop to think about all of those kind of secondary parts of the village that it takes beyond just the writer, beyond just the creative team making those things happen, that get affected by that story as it goes from up here to your paper.
100%. To build on that too, we live in this time. It's impossible to escape it. Where the use of AI, as we refer to it today, is impacting so many creative fields, and it's I'm always going to be biased on the topic, obviously, due to what I do for a living. But it's something where uh, the people who love or claim to love these properties and characters, uh, and then just creative works in general, from from the art to the written and everything else that's being impacted by it, uh, are going to really be in a space where they're going to have to decide if that love is going to be voted on with their dollars. There's a flood of folks. I see it on the editing side where AI generated work is infiltrating a lot of what we do more and more, and it's distressing for someone like me who is cried literal tears over work and um, had that transformation process that comes from embarking on something of this magnitude. And it's like that not just for this book, for every book you do. You're a changed person after the process. It's not just the work that you created. It's a reflection of you, and it's changing you as you go back and examine what you've done and who you were before it. And I wish more people who are looking for ways to get into an incredibly challenging and incredibly demanding industry are looking for shortcuts. I wish that they would develop the tools that AI is stealing from them.
Mhm.
So, and I'm sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. I
No,
promise
no,
you I wasn't trying
I
to.
am. I'm right there with you, and it is. I grew up playing sports and all that,
Hmm.
uh, and worked in law enforcement and a crime lab and all of that, and I understand the concept of paying dues, and I think beyond just the creative theft that AI takes. Because it's like somebody bringing you a pizza and saying, "I made this." Like you didn't. Someone else did. But beyond just that, you're essentially looking for a way to not have to pay your dues. You're not.
Mhm.
You talked about the process and the literal tears and stuff that goes into some of those stories, but there's also the tears for the stories that never got to be, the rejection letters, the stories where you sent something in for an anthology and an editor is as good as they're trying to do it is saying, "Hey, this is good, but no thank you," type thing. And some of these AI generated works, the stuff, the writing and all that, just kind of completely is devoid of that. And I think beyond just the theft aspect of, you are not creating anything from scratch, you are taking an idea that someone else already created in refurbishment. It is the lack of the blood, sweat, and tears. It is just an emotionless thing to me. You see, I don't care how many times you type a prompt and say, "Make this scene more emotional." An AI algorithm, an AI algorithm cannot truly capture human emotion, right? And one of the things, talking about this book, the What If novel, there is some emotional moments in here, and that's not something that a computer program that's never experienced emotion, that's never experienced the pain, the heartbreak of fatherhood and family and things like that. They can't get that, because no matter how many times you tell it to capture that, you have to experience it, right? It's the whole "write what you know" thing. And when what you know is something everyone else has experienced, how do you really capture that? And you're right. People are going to vote with their dollars, and it always goes back to, like, working in criminal justice. My thought was always laughed at the hackers, right? Like, you guys are out here stealing people's 401k and stuff. Imagine if you had that level of tools and that level of skill set, and you put it towards something actually useful in life. It's the same thing with the creative, I guess you'd call them creative people, who are out here using AI to write stories and stuff. If you have these skills to think of these ideas to tell someone, what if you, like you said, develop those tools that AI is stealing from you? Don't just say, "I have an idea." Get with somebody that can teach you how to flesh that idea out, right? Get through an editor, get to another writer, and just say, it's kind of cliche, but the old days of the 80s, 90s Hollywood, where people moving to Hollywood, taking dead end jobs just to throw their script at a studio head. It's still that kind of thing. Like, sometimes you need to be told this kind of sucks, and you don't really get that with AI, because you don't grow through that. So
Mhm.
I don't think it's a soapbox. I think it's an important conversation to have, and I think especially in someone in your work that is immediately impacted by this. We saw San Diego Comic-Con was this weekend, and there was a lot of stuff where even artists now are almost having to kind of record their process as they do these artworks, to ensure people that this is not AI. Or
Mhm.
we've got writers and stuff that are holding their first manuscript of the book, so that they can say, "No, look, this is me. I did this. These changes happened." And so, yeah, I don't think it's a soapbox for you to get on it. We can talk about that forever. Uh,
That's right.
but and it really is. And I think the thing that I like hearing you talk about that is just because, for me, AI always seems so emotionless. And I know for a fact, even if I took all of your ideas and prompted them into an AI and got a version of this book, it still wouldn't be the same, because it doesn't capture those emotions. You have kids yourself, and you don't. A robot can't capture those emotions, right? I have two kids of my own. If you've never been a parent, man, it's unlike anything else in the world. And I always laugh, because I'm older now and I have people I know that are younger. "Oh, we're having our first kid. You have any advice?" No, everybody has advice for you. Everybody's kids are going to be different. I said, read the books, talk to people, but understand that applies to their kids and their kids only. Some of it's going to be useful, some of it's not. and I don't think, necessarily you're any better in the world for being a parent or not being a parent. If you choose not to have kids, that's great. But until you've had kids, it's just a different level of emotion stuff you can't understand.
Mhm.
And no robot's going to ever be able to produce that. So, for me, reading this book, you can feel the emotion coming off the pages. And like I told you earlier, I like that it feels complete, but also honoring the past. But I just love the way these characters come to life. I've loved America Chavez for a long time as a character. I love that we really get to see her shine in your story and kind of bring this full circle. But it's so great to see all of this happen. So what, this is coming up. You've got, this comes out August 4th. So we are officially a week away at this point from
Yes.
when Multiverse was doomed coming out. What else you got going on the front? You have anything else coming up? Anything you're working on you'd like to talk about?
Oh man, I have a few projects that kind of poking with a stick, like the meme. Like, can you move? Like, show us some signs of life. I wish I had a pitch on those to share. The more exciting thing that I've got going on is an anthology that's celebrating 10 years of Fire, and that's coming out in September. So is like, next week I'm releasing with Marvel, and we get to cartwheel and cheer about that, and then it's right on to promo for the next thing. Um, the magazine itself has been around for 10 years. I'm particularly excited about this collection because um, it's a group of folks that are just like at every possible stage of career in speculative fiction, right? For a lot of us, that maybe, I don't know if I'm an OG. I don't think I'd consider myself there yet, but maybe like middle of the pack. And a lot of us were kind of on that, you know, hard hat and lunch pail approach to just, you get your short stories in, you earn your writing credits along the way. So you got a few more bullet points while you're querying agents for your longer work, get a few rejections for that, you get your representation. And then lo and behold, eventually at some point you get some, you get a debut out there, right? And in my case, get very fortunate to go on and write IP of this nature. The way the landscape is now, there's always been multiple ways to do this, right? And I'd certainly never advocate for one over the other. It's just like you were saying with kids. It's like, if this journey is something that people are impassioned to do, they're going to find a way to do it and find a way to be resilient and stick to it. And this
Everybody's path is going to be their
collection.
own way.
Exactly. This collection represents folks who have been doing it for the longest time, and then people who are brand new. The last thing I'll say is with the magazine is one of the tough parts for our staff that works is that there aren't that many markets where you're going to get as fair of a shake being a Black speculative fiction writer. So this is a place where we're dedicated to finding writers with that identity. You're kind of, as a staff person, it's like you don't get to submit to the place that you're working at, right? So there was, I want to say, about half of these stories or half of the slots, if you will, were dedicated to staff members of the magazine, past and present, to just give them a chance that while they've done what I consider in a lot of ways to be community service and keeping the magazine going, they get a chance to kind of show their chops and get one more data point on the incredible work that they're writing on, as they go forward in their careers. So I will be shouting about that for months to come.
And DaVaun, for people who may not know, tell us a little bit about FIO. What is it? You talked about the magazine. I've mentioned it, but give us a quick rundown on what it is in case someone's hearing you talk about it, hearing about the anthology, and wants to kind of know a little bit more.
Absolutely. FIO Literary Magazine of Speculative. My goodness, I'm way too far ahead of myself. Let me back up. bi-literary magazine of Black speculative fiction. Has been around for 10 years. It is an online short fiction market that does poetry in addition to short fiction stories. We've been around the block for a while, Hugo nominated and winning in the past, and have been, I would dare say, an institution in the short fiction and speculative fiction community. Our past members, shout out to LD and Brent, were key members of FireCon. If you remember how wild it was during the pandemic to do anything, they kind of trailblazed a convention that could operate in a primarily online space, in addition to putting forth Black and BIPOC voices and showing that we've got more to talk about with craft than just diversity panels. Mm-hmm. So magazine has been around for a long time. I guarantee that there's an author or a poet in there that is your next favorite. There's multiple folks in there that may have published, if not their first piece, maybe one of their first pro-rate paid pieces. Mm-hmm. And we're privileged to be a ladder, one of the rungs on the ladder, I guess you could say, on their stair step to success, whatever that looks like for that author, whether it's continuing to be to put out a bunch in short fiction or to go on and do novels. So you'll see a lot of authors that you're very familiar with that have gone on to produce longer work in those pages. For the magazine, for the anthology itself, is forged in fire. And, as I was talking about before, it's just a celebration. It was important for me to not put out an anthology of authors that have appeared in the magazine or worked for the magazine and frame it as like a best of, right? We have plenty of anthologies that kind of explore that ground through that competitive lens. Shawn, I could have made this anthology easily like twice the size that it is. But that affects payouts. It affects
volume 10.
Listen, it could easily be a yearly thing, just with the stories that are put out in the community year after year. So, whether that's something we get to do on an annual basis, you never know. But for now, it's one of the things where we get to celebrate, and I'm just proud as I can be of it and grateful for the authors who gave us some work.
Awesome. Well, DaVaun, thank you for your time today. Thanks for talking What If. All the success in the world to you. I think it's going to be a hit. Loved it. So before we go, tell anybody watching, Nerd Initiative fans, maybe DaVaun Sanders fans, where can we find you? Where can we, if we want to tell you we love the book, where can we get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Thanks again. This has been a remarkable interview, and I'm just grateful for you reaching out and that we got to get it done. For folks who are looking for me, I think I am probably most available on Instagram. You'll see me there, Instagram and Threads. I'm trying my TikTok thing, but my kids roll their eyes whenever I, try and do something like, does this work? So I've got a little bit more training to do before I'm tween approved to use that app.
Tween's out here peer pressuring you in to get better at TikTok.
To get better at everything. I'll tell them some things that I said, if I'm off doing, author things and, getting a chance to speak to kids. And they're like, oh my God, Dad, did you really say chat? Like, that's not how that works. So anytime I get to embarrass them with how old I am, like I'll take advantage of it every time and report back.
Your kids are going to come back with watching this when it hits all your social media. They're going to come back and they're going to say, Dad, here's a list of notes of things you could have done.
Yes. Every time. Notes and eye rolls, like, just please do better. I've got 2 media managers in the making for sure.
Well, DaVaun, thank you so much. Everybody, What If the Multiverse Was Doomed from DaVaun Sanders is out August 4th. That is next Tuesday. That is the cover with all of our previous heroes on it, as well as Big Bad Mr. Dr. Doom. So make sure you subscribe, follow more interviews coming from Nerd Initiative. I'm headed to Gen Con. I'm going to be posting some Gen Con content while I'm out there. But DaVaun, thanks again so much and appreciate your time.
I appreciate you. Have a good one, man.